So the commutative property is specific examples when we have situations like a number, let's say 3 times something in parentheses. It could be like n plus 2. Okay, so if we think about what multiplication means, right? Let's say, for example, I had 3 times 4, right? We know that means 4 plus 4 plus 4. So it's 3 groups of those, or 3 of those 4s being added together, right? Multiplication is in essence a shortcut for repeated addition. So we can apply the same logic here. So if I have 3 times n plus 2, right, that's like thinking n plus 2 plus n plus 2 plus n plus 2. Right, well, how many n's is that? That's 1, 2, that's 3 n's. And a 2 and a 2 and a 2 make 6. Okay, so 3 times n plus 2 is going to be equal to 3n plus 6, right? Now, obviously, we don't want to have to use that technique of writing that repeated addition out to figure that out. So the distributive property helps us to look at how we can do that without having to rewrite all that. So essentially what the distributive property says is that, let me rewrite that here. If I have the same scenario, let's go 3n plus 2 again. Okay. So if we think about the word distributive property, right, it has the root word distribute. Okay. All right. So distribute means to like pass out evenly. Like if I said go distribute flyers, you'd give everybody you saw a flyer, or sometimes in class you have to distribute papers, right? Everybody gets a paper. So to distribute is to give out equally. So distributive property is the same idea. Essentially what it says is we take that thing on the outside. Okay, so let's say we said A times B plus C. We take the thing on the outside times each thing on the inside. So I've got to take the A times the B plus the A times the C. Okay, so in my particular scenario, I'm going to take the 3 times the n, which is just 3n. Okay, again, we don't need a time symbol with variables in there. And then the 3 times the 2. Okay, or more simply, 3n plus 6. Okay, so rather than writing out that n plus 2 plus n plus 2 plus n plus 2, essentially we see the pattern as, well, it's 3 times both of those terms, 3 times the n, 3 times the 2. Let's look at another example. Let's look at one with subtraction in it. Let's say we had 4 times 2n minus 6. Okay, so again, the distributive property says take the thing on the outside and distribute it or multiply it by each of the terms on the inside. Right, so I'd want to do the 4 times the 2n minus the 4 times the 6. Okay, 4 times 2n is 8n minus 4 times 6 is 24. So 4 times the quantity 2n minus 6 is equivalent to 8n minus 24. Okay. Couple things to be careful of on this. Typically where students will tend to mess this up is when we start throwing some negatives in there. So let's say I like -3 parentheses negative 2n minus, or let's go plus 5 first. Okay, so we've got to be careful of these negatives, right? Again, I'm going to distribute that -3. -3 times negative 2n plus -3 times 5. Okay, so we got a negative times a negative. If we recall from our last unit that a negative times a negative is going to be a positive. Okay, so 6n plus -3 times 5 is -15, or more simply, we can simply rewrite that as 6n minus 15. At this point, either of those will be fine. They both have the same meaning, right? But we just have to be a little bit careful of those negatives. Let's look at one more example with a negative in it. Let's have, say, -2 times 2n minus 4. Okay. So again, we're going to distribute that -2. So -2 times 2n minus a -2 times 4. Right, so -2 times 2n is -4n minus -8, and more simply, -4n Remember, when we subtract a negative, that's like adding a positive, plus 8. Okay? Now, as you get more comfortable with this, what you'll start noticing and just come natural at is seeing, well, that's a negative 2, and really a minus 4, right, is going to be the same thing as a plus negative. The minus sign in front is essentially acts like a negative sign. So rather than having to write out a minus negative 8 and then changing it, right, you'll start to recognize that, well, if it's a negative and a minus 4, that's like negative 2 times negative 4, which gives us positive 8. Okay, and we really don't want to have to write a sentence with a minus negative, so if we get that, let's make sure that we are changing that and simplifying that down to just plus 8. Okay. All right, so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and give you a couple to try. So after I write these, I want you to pause the video, give them a try, and then I play the video again, and then I will go over the answers with you before we continue on here. Okay, so your first one. Okay, we'll do that. Your second one. Looks like that. So first one, 6 times the quantity 2n plus 3. Your second one will be negative 3 times the quantity negative 4n minus 4. So again, go ahead and pause the video, give those a try, and then hit play, and we'll go over the answers together. All right, so the first one, again, we want to distribute that 6. So we got to do 6 times 2n, which gives us 12n, and then a 6 times a 3, which is an 18. So plus 18. Okay, on that second one, we're going to take that negative 3, and we're going to first distribute it to the negative 4n. So negative 3 times negative 4n is positive 12n. And then we're going to distribute here. And again, we've got that minus sign and a minus sign, right? So we know those are two negatives that are going to turn to a positive. So plus, and then 3 times 4 gets us 12. Okay, if you ended up with 12n minus negative 12, again, let's just remember that we want to be able to simplify, right? If you have two negatives there, let's go ahead and, or a minus a negative, let's go ahead and simplify that to plus a positive, and write your answer as 12n plus 12 on that one. Okay. All right. Now, there's one other use of the distributive property. Sometimes it makes things a little bit easier to do some mental math. Okay. Common occurrence: you go into the store, you want to buy some items, and let's say you bought like 3 items that cost $1.25. Okay, so 3 times $1.25. And we want to be able to, and not a super hard mental math problem, but again, we want to be able to kind of use the distributive property to break a problem down and make it easier to do mentally. So what we can do is we can take that $1.25 and we can split it into, in this case, 1 plus 0.25. And why we would do that, and what people that are good at mental math, you know, they naturally kind of do this, is now we can distribute that 3. Okay, so instead of thinking as 3 times 1.25 and where's the decimal point go, we can just think of, well, that's 3 times 1, which is mental math, right? Plus 3 times 0.25. Well, 3/4 is 75 cents, right? So that's going to get $3.75. Okay, and you may naturally do that already, but that's just how the distributive property is being used to do that. Okay, another one where it might come in handy, right? Let's say instead of $1.25, your 3 items are now $1.99, right? A much more challenging problem to be able to do mentally because you've got to do some regrouping and things like that. So instead of $1, this time we're going to use subtraction to make this a little easier. So $1.99 is about $2. Okay, and what do I do with $2 to get $1.99? I take away 1 cent, or I take away a penny. So we're going to use subtraction on this one, right? The previous one, we saw we used addition, 1 plus 25 cents. Here we're going to use subtraction, okay? Don't, and students will do this as you start to learn this, we're not going to split it into 1 plus 0.99, or we're not going to split it into 1 plus 0.9 plus 0.09, right? You're not really simplifying the problem at all when you do that, all right? Instead, we're going to use subtraction. Okay, $1.99 is $2 minus a penny. So now the distributive property turns this into easy mental math, right? 3 times 2, everybody can do that, that's 6. Right? 3 times a penny, or 3 times 0.01 is 0.03. right? And if I have $6 and I take away 3 cents, I'm left with 5.97. Okay. So again, the distributive property takes a tough problem that would be hard to do mentally and turns it into a very simple calculation that you can do in your head. All right, let's try a couple of these. Again, same idea. I'll give you a couple problems. Give them a try. Pause the video. Give them a try, and then play the video again, and we'll go over the answers. Okay. So let's try the first one. Let's do 7 times. Let's do something fairly simple. 12. Okay. And the second one, let's do 6 times 999. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video, give those a try when you think you have the answers. And again, I don't want you to just simply multiply them out, right? I know you can do 7 times 12 on paper or with a calculator. I want you to see, can you use the distributive property to make that a little bit easier mentally? Okay, same thing with 6 times 99 or 999. All right, so let's go over the answers here. So 12, we want to break down into 10 plus 2. Okay. So then we're just going to distribute that 7. So that's 7 times 10, 70. 7 times 2 is 14. 70 and 14 make 84. Okay, so pretty simple. All right, 999, if you think about it, is almost 1,000. Okay, and if we take away 1, we get that 999, right? So again, pretty tough mental math problem now becomes pretty simple. 6 times 1,000 is 6,000. 6 times 1 is 6. Right, just count backwards. 6,000 minus 6 is 5,994.